Um, the Congress passed the Motor Carrier Act in 1935, which controlled the interstate commerce as oversight over the trucking industry, because before that it was just each individual states. But then they made it a federal operation at that point, and it controlled, it oversaw the safety issues and the hours of service for trucks and truck drivers. In 1945, the trucking industry it was vital after World War II. In fact, President Eisenhower, who saw the German system of international highways, or I should say interstate in Germany, their highway system where they could get supplies and equipment and everything across Germany very quickly because of the highway system that's there, and he decided to adopt that into the United States. It significantly increased our ability to not just move military equipment, but to improve commerce. So it was a good benefit to that. Having said that, in 2000, the FMCSA was instituted, and it's a separate part of the DOT. And the idea there was to reduce crashes and injuries and deaths involving big trucks and buses. The FMCSA basically enforces regulations, all the trucking regulations, but significantly for them it was to keep track of who were the violators of the authority, what companies, what drivers were continuously violating the regulations. And they had a special ability, they had the authority to shut operations down or to disqualify drivers from driving. So that's the way the FMCSA. Before that, DOT had regulations, but they had no way to keep track of who the multiple failure regulators who were violating the regulations. They had no way to keep track of it. So 2000, they instituted the FMCSA. And part of the reason for talking about that is this week is the brake inspection week. From the 25th to the 31st, you may be pulled in to have your brakes inspected. Having said that, you are, as part of your pre-trip, responsible for doing visual inspections on the brakes, and that includes the trailers, doing a visual as best you can. They're not required to get underneath and look at them, but you are required to do that, and you're required to do a tug test to make sure that, in a braking operation, to make sure that your brakes are operable and that you have sufficient air and all of that to make them operate. Okay. If you find that you have a trailer that doesn't meet the requirements, or you're not sure about it, you feel a little funny about it, you don't take that trailer. Don't take it. Take it over to some inspection operation or someplace facility that can get underneath and look at it to see if it's okay or not. And like I said,
sorry to disrupt, but the other day I was covering a run with Ruben, and I noticed the pops are very challenging, like to look underneath, like to look those like the cables, especially the brakes. It's like there's any hint, or maybe somebody knows about any hint, any trick that you can do in order to look those pops like effectively during that pre-trip?
Yeah, there are no tricks to it. You just have to visually look the best that you can. It used to be required to check your brake distances, the distance on the cams and all of that. Okay, that's not required now. It's just a visual inspection and a testing to make sure that the operation. There's no trick to it. The professionals who are operating or who are maintain the truck have to get on have to crawl underneath. Drivers are not required to do that, but they are required to look visually and to test.
Thank you.
If you go look, okay, yeah, you can look for hoses and disconnections where places where the hoses are either cracked or cut, not necessarily cut by people, but cracked or have a notch in them or something, or they're rubbing up against something. Those kinds of things. You can do that visually. Nothing underneath that you have to crawl under is required by the driver. But you do test them. Okay, so having said that, part of the reason for having good brakes is to make sure that you are able to stop in case you have to, which means following distance. Maintain your following distance. Now, a lot of people don't know how to judge what your following distance is. How you judge your following distance is the vehicle that is in front of you. You find a sign or the edge of a bridge or some kind of object on the side of the road, and you count from the time that the vehicle, the back of that vehicle leaves that spot, and you count 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004 until your truck reaches, the front of your truck reaches that same spot. Now, what's a good following distance? As much as possible. But there's a formula for that. And the formula is you need 1 second for every 10 feet of your vehicle. So between the trailers and the vehicle, your tractor, you're talking maybe 70 feet, 75 feet, and that means you should be 7.5 seconds of following distance. Now, in addition to that, anything over 40 miles an hour, you add another second. So if you're doing 55, you add another second to that. So that would be 8.5 seconds that you do. Now, I've had drivers talk to me about this and say, hey, if we do this, we're never going to get there. It's going to be long. What's the minimum? Well, there is no minimum. Following distance is what it is. And the fatalities that have occurred because of rear ending and the injuries that have been caused because of rear ending is because people don't follow following distance. Simple as that. Okay? So 1 second for every 10 feet of your vehicle and another second for any miles per hour over 40. It's easy to calculate. It's quick in your head. And the end of the other vehicle in front of you to the beginning of the vehicle, to the beginning of your vehicle, front of your vehicle, is how you count. Okay? What we're talking about now is triangles. There are several things. I'm not gonna go through all of the ways that you should have your triangles. You're responsible for knowing when and where to place your triangles. And there's several reasons for doing that. And there's several situations for doing that. Okay, it's your responsibility to know what that is. For me to go through all of them is you're not gonna remember it. So make it a part of your job, as part of your safety issue, to know where your triangles are supposed to be placed and under what circumstances they're supposed to be placed. Especially if you're on the side of the road. I've been asked about this before, and let's say you don't place your triangles, you don't have your flashers on, you don't have your triangles out if you're stalled and you can't move. If someone hits you, you will be ruled at fault. Now, they may be at fault as well. They may have drifted off the side of the road or not paid attention or whatever, but you are just as much at fault. It's not a thing that you can, what's the word I'm looking for? There's things that, okay, yeah, well, I didn't have time to do that. You need to know this. You need to know how long you have to get the triangles out and where they're supposed to be placed. Okay? Otherwise, if there is an accident, you can be ruled at fault. Okay, that's all I have for today. Are there any questions?
Aaron is showing I found this PDF that Progressive sent us with illustrations on the road and how the triangles should go. So Aaron went ahead and showed them. And the other thing that we have, it's for the following distance, Protective, again, they invite the drivers to analyze the behavior. Why do I need to basically to follow the rules? So they give this chart like rewards versus consequences. What are the good things if I follow the distance? And the illustration, the PDF document shows like the reward will be I will be back to see my family again. I avoid having an injury, or I avoid damaging a vehicle. I will have my safety bonus, like the incentive bonus says. I will maintain my clean driving record. I will have 100% service. And the consequences will be like, I could cost the life, either my life or the life of other. I could end up without unemployment because we analyze the behavior. The cameras let us know the whole picture. Some people believe that the cameras just show us in front of the tractor in the first lane or the lane in front of the tractor, but no, the cameras show us basically 180 degree. And well, if I make the choice that is not appropriate and I decide not to follow the distance or to keep the following distance as I should, then I will lose my safety bonus. I will cause damage to the vehicle. I will have to deal with the police and citations, and I will miss my service. So just think about that. Every choice, whether it is good or bad, has a consequence, and consequences are good or are not so good sometimes, but it is there. So I like this because I think invite us to think and to leave that complacency that sometimes we have. So I just wanted to share it with you guys. Thank you, Aaron.
No problem. Yeah, I want to mention too, in regards to following distance, I think the results of not having enough following distance gets very glaring when you look at the type of accident, especially on the highway, that tends to happen. I know David mentioned you rear end someone else, especially a family or another vehicle that has a lot of people in it. It typically occurs, or the results of that are typically, very, very bad, results in probably a fatality or a minimum, someone going to the hospital or multiple people. And it's outside of maybe intersections, not having proper following distance and accidents that occur from it are probably one of the more devastating accident types that can happen out there. And I always like to remind drivers that the challenges of or understanding that since the reason why there's so many rules and regulations in this business or this industry is because you're operating in the public. Now, if you really think about it, any industry that operates in the public has government oversight over it. I don't care if it's as small as working at a restaurant, working at McDonald's, a fast food place has government regulations, whether that's city or county or state or federal. There's regulations because you're providing service to the public. And that's why it gets very challenging when something happens. If they can prove negligence on the driver, and if you're, say, for example, your following distance was compromised because maybe you were on the phone or you were looking down for a drink or a sandwich or something, and you look up and your following distance got compromised, and you rear end someone, typically what's going to happen, especially if someone gets severely hurt or passes away, the families gets attorneys and they start suing everybody, whether they're going to definitely sue FedEx, they might sue the contractor. And what I see out here, which is becoming more and more popular, they include the driver as well. You know, so you can incur civil penalties. It could be, you know, they can sue you as well. It could be, you know, criminal penalties if, you know, they see, you know, the negligence is gross enough. So you got to understand that you know, it's not just I'm driving a truck across country and I'm doing this because I need to get paid. Yes, that's true, but the point of it is to do it safely as well because the risks are very high. It's no different. Just like we hold the pilot to a high standard, you know, to make sure he flies that plane with his utmost you know, attention and respect to his craft. Just like we hold the doctor in high regard because, you know, he needs to perform a surgery that's you know, maybe, you know, life threatening, and he needs to make sure that that gets fixed. um it all goes down to making sure people are at the tip top of their game, but also just the focus and attention has to be there. And I even tell, you know, drivers that even class C drivers, you know, even at McDonald's, if a driver, or I mean if a cook serves food that is not cooked all the way, primarily chicken, someone gets sick and die, you know what's going to proceed next, right? The family's going to sue McDonald's, they're going to sue the franchisee, and guess what happens? They end up saying, well, the cook knew better. He took a class. He went to the county to get a certification on internal food temperatures. And just imagine that a person like that getting sued for something like that, all because of negligence, but mainly because he's operating in the public. He's serving food to the public. So understanding that there's a lot of liability that comes in, you know, when it comes to operating around the public, that if you don't follow those rules and those regulations and drive with the utmost respect for the road and respect for those around you, it could catch up with you. And it may not be today or tomorrow or next year, you know, but you gotta understand that if I'm found negligent, it could turn my whole life upside down, and that's what we don't want. That's why we have these meetings, as reminders, as information, as education, to just keep us sharp, keep us focused on what's this really about. And like Xenia said, it really comes back to driving with the focus and the thought in mind, and I want to return home to my family after every trip.
Aaron, can I add to that real quick?
Yes, sir.
A lot of the things that we talk about are how to prevent things from happening. And that's kind of in a way, it's a sort of a negative. I don't want to do this or I don't want to do that. It's a negative way to think of it. I try to teach people to be positive about it. I am a professional. As a professional, I need to be this way. I need to think about these things in terms of my profession, in terms of the quality of my work, in terms of the attitude that I have towards my work. That's the positive side of it. And that's probably the hardest thing, because I know that people are not encouraged many times to be positive about it, to be a professional. They're always told about what not to do, how it's going to affect somebody, and not hurt somebody and all that. That's necessary as well. But I want you to start thinking about it more positively and saying, I'm a professional. As a professional, I have a responsibility to myself to be positive, to make sure that I am doing everything the way I'm supposed to do it and when I'm supposed to do it. You know, like Aaron was talking about a surgeon. If a surgeon kept thinking about what I want to prevent this, I want to prevent that. That's not the way surgeons work. Surgeons think positively. I'm going in here. I'm going to get this done, and all of my skills are going to be applied to that. That's the way you need to start thinking about yourselves. This is not. You are not a. You know, they talk about workers being a certain class. Well, truck drivers are not that class. They are a step above that. They are in the professional class. And you need to start thinking of yourself that way. That's all.
Amen to that. Then you guys want to go to the FedEx updates?
Yes, Orlando, they are just focused in this break safety week. We know that, especially from the Orlando terminal and the Ocala, we are moving a lot of trailers from the railroad yard. Please make sure you follow the instructions in those railroad trailers. The seals, the tires, you know that sometimes they are not in good conditions. Inspect them thoroughly, because this week we have more presence out there for the law enforcement. And you know, sometimes those trailers, they don't look like that good. Check your lights, check your tires, and do not provoke an inspection. As David says, let's follow the best practices. You know what you have to do. We give you advices, make good choices. In Ocala, oh, I have a typo. But basically what they say is that to look at the doors pull off policy, maintain taking those screen pictures, looking through the hole they did in the close to the doors, take your pictures, look underneath, make sure that door is closed, okay? Do not rely on the app. They're still having issues with the app where they say it's closed, you have the good to go, the green light, whatever, but they're having issues with that. Happy birthday to everyone who born in August. We talk about August 25th to 31st, break safety week. And for the safety, check the trailer registration. Make sure that you are looking for that trailer registration. We heard from some drivers that got an inspection and they got a ticket because they didn't have the trailer inspection in the trailers they were moving. Also, in the paper that we give you for the mileage, make sure that you communicate that whatever you need in there, if you notice that there is any issue, because that helps us whenever we go into your tractor to be proactive and fix things right away for you. Time off, all spaces are taken. There's no more time off. November, end of November and January, remember, is blocked for peak. So I will send the calendar again on January, maybe the first week, the last week of December, but there's no more spaces for this year. So we really need you. We need all hands on board. And the cameras, Ruben and Carlos, they started already changing the cameras. We're learning about the new system, the new program. We're gonna have that this month. So you will see soon another camera in the tractor that will be talking to you or doing whatever the camera does. We're gonna talk about that. I'm gonna schedule some meetings in October so we can meet, we can discuss, and we can problem solve, okay? So that yearly meeting that I'll do face-to-face, I will be scheduling that soon. Thank you again for your time. Thank you for all you do, and let's have a safe week. Thank you, David. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good month.
You can show your video.